one of my favorite things was coaching. I coached my kids all through Little League, CYO basketball, AAU basketball, and I got to coach a lot of other people's children. And that was something that I will cherish forever.
Welcome to A Place of Yes. I'm your host, Heather Strader, a podcast about how I moved through my darkest hour. And all I can say is I dug deep, figured out where I was and where I wanted to be. And for me, the answer was in a place of yes. Welcome to the show. It seems like everybody is on a wellness journey, myself included. One of the things that is very important to me is hydration. Those of you who know me know I always have a water bottle in hand no matter where I am. I commit to drinking a minimum of 100 ounces a day, but I don't just drink the water. I use electrolytes. My favorite, by far, electrolytes are Redmond Light. They are so delicious. They have real salt, quality sodium, so that you just feel better. They're energizing, they're all natural ingredients, there's no added sugar, and I just ordered mojito flavored, so that should be fun this summer. Hello, welcome to A Place of Yes. So today I am so excited to have Skip Carlson here with me. In Saratoga, Skip is really quite a local celebrity. He would never tell you that, but he actually is. Everybody who has ever met him loves him. He works as the VP of External Affairs and Signature Services at Saratoga Casino, and he is also Colleen Carlson's husband. Colleen is one of our original board members at Jake's Help from Heaven, and Brian and I have been huge fans of the Carlson family since we've been in Saratoga. Part of what I think makes Skip so special and makes me so happy to be sharing this podcast, this interview with him right now, is that he's just a genuinely kind human being. He cares about people, he cares about his family, his friends, his community, and he just works really diligently to make where we live a better place. So thank you for being here, Skip. I appreciate it.
Wow. Thank you for the kind words. And the feeling is mutual about you and Brian. So two of our best friends, and the work you do in the community is unbelievably respected.
Thank you. Thank you. So can you share with the audience a little bit about yourself, about your family, what your favorite thing about the community is, just a little bit?
So from a fortunate standpoint, got an A+, just landing in Saratoga, meeting Colleen, being able to raise my family here. So unlike Colleen, I am not a Saratoga native. So I've only lived here for 50 years.
I actually assumed you were a Saratoga native,
I am not.
I've already learned something.
I am not. So Colleen is a Saratoga native. I'm from Albany originally, so I've only been here since I was, when I got out of college. So anyway, I moved here. Colleen will kill me for saying this, but between the two of us, I think we have darn close to 100 years at Saratoga Casino Hotel between the two of us. So we met at work.
Oh, wow.
And for me, it's the only place I ever worked. So I got out of Holy Cross in 1977, and I've been at Saratoga Casino ever since. It's been a pleasure to work for the Garrity's. So I've worked for 3 generations of Garrity's. When it comes to the community, I feel very fortunate to work for a company that cares about the community, that gives back.
Can I stop you for 1 second?
Sure.
Because I think that's so kind of powerful what you said, that you have only, in today's world, where kids are constantly working different jobs and jumping from one to the other. Like, I love so much that you have been one place, have worked with this family. So what is it about Saratoga Casino that, because I'm sure you've gotten offers to be elsewhere or had opportunity to be elsewhere, but that level of loyalty and just kind of commitment I just love that. I think that's so great.
I don't know if it's for everybody, first of all. When I talk to, say, high school or college students about my career and what I'm there to talk about, I'm not sure what I did was a great thing or a really good thing. Yeah. I mean, people say you're supposed to get like 5 different jobs throughout. And the reason why I stayed there is I enjoyed going to work every day. I did not want to move from Saratoga. I absolutely love everything about Saratoga. So I just love, raising my family here, and were there other opportunities along the way a little bit, but I decided a long time ago that, I don't think Colleen would have moved anyway.
She loves it here too. Yeah.
If I was moving, it was without her. It's all good. One of my favorite things was coaching. I coached my kids all through Little League, CYO basketball, AAU basketball, and I got to coach a lot of other people's children. And that was something that I will cherish forever. All the people that I met, I was probably an overedged coach. I wish I could do it again because I think I was little over the top. So I think I'd chill a little more.
I suspect there are a lot of people out there your son's age who remember you as a great coach. I never did sports growing up, but Ethan, as you know, started at 3 with soccer over at the casino fields, did basketball, baseball, track, tons of things. And there's a handful of coaches out there that have made such an impact on who he is in such a different way than certainly Brian or I or my father or other people, right? It's these coaches. So I'm sometimes jealous that I wasn't like a athlete growing up because I just think it's such a special relationship.
It is a very special relationship, but I'm going to say something about one person. Most of the people that coach because they want to coach their kids and they don't want someone else coaching them. They think they can do a better job. That was me. But there's one person in this community that I always remember. I coached with him. He coached afterwards. He umpired baseball games. And he probably coached for 20, 25 years, maybe more than that. And that's Pat Pepino.
I was wondering if that's who you were going to say.
Pat Pepino, he coached. I mean, he had his daughters. I don't know if he coached them. But when he coached Little League Baseball, he was an awesome coach. He never had any kids. And to be truthful, once my kids moved on, I moved on.
Yeah.
So, shame on me.
Well, Ethan was always jealous that he was not on the Ben and Jerry's baseball team because when they won, they all got to go to Ben and Jerry's.
Is that how we got all the good players free ice cream? That was
I think there was a motivation there.
When I got there, it was Saratoga Raceway. We've had a lot of different names, and it was a mom and pop kind of organization. We maybe had 40 full-time employees. We now have 450, and at one time we had over 600 employees. We went from a mom and pop harness track, and now we're celebrating our 20th anniversary. So we're now kind of corporate. So I've seen that change. We now own 2 casinos. We own a casino in Mississippi, and we own a casino in Colorado. So it's just a different dynamic.
I mean, that's a big change over time.
Oh, absolutely. But that is the corporate world. I mean, you can't, if you want to grow,
stay the same. Yeah.
If you want to grow.
Not just corporate though. Like we see that with Jake's Help from Heaven a little bit, right? Like when we started, as you know, because Colleen was an original board member, there was 7 or 8 of us. We didn't really know what we were doing. And then we have turned it into this nonprofit that has awarded $1.6 million in 13 years. Like it's, you have to change, you have to keep up, you have to figure out how to grow and be better and do better. And I think you guys at the casino really have done this incredible job of doing better for the community. And I don't know that everyone knows that. So can you talk a little bit about all the things you do or some of the things you guys do?
That's very nice of you to say. And congrats to Jake's. You really have adapted. You started as a mom and pop. It was you and Brian. And now even doing what you're doing with this kind of interaction in social media and getting the message out, the work that you do is extraordinary. So
thank you.
My hat's off to you. So what we do in the community, we have maybe 3 buckets of philanthropic things that we do for the community. So the first thing each year, I'm going to say for the past 15 to 20 years, we've given 12 grants of $10,000 to different organizations. And I know Jake has been a recipient. The great part about it is the organizations don't have to fill out any paperwork. They don't have to stand on their head to raise any money. We sit down in a room, our donations committee, and we talk about different organizations, and we decide these are the organizations that are going to get it. We invite everybody to lunch, and we give them the donation. They get to go up on stage, tell us about their organization.
As a recipient, I've said this in a lot of different venues, it is by far my most favorite event. It's just about being able to talk about your work, see other people who are doing like-minded work. And like you said, we're not jumping through hoops to get it. Sometimes you work so hard for things. It is one of my favorite days. It used to be back in the day, it was kind of like an evening thing. Did I make that up? Or
No.
Yeah, it was, right? It was an evening thing. I love that it's a lunch. I love that it's on Giving Tuesday. I love that, kind of every organization gets a table. So you can bring like 6 or 7 people. You can bring board members. Sometimes we've brought like families that we've helped. It's just such a great day.
There's a lot of organizations that can probably share ideas. And I think that's my favorite part is listening to each one of the organizations. They get a couple minutes to go up on stage, tell what's important to them, tell the trials, the tribulations. And it's a very crowded space to try to get money from, corporations or companies. I love to talk about Stewards, love to talk about Adirondack Trust. Those are 2 organizations, companies in this community that go far and above, and they are, they're awesome. So it's kudos to them. So we have the making a difference, we call that. And then we have something we do through the county. We give them $25,000 a year, and the horsemen give them $5,000 a year. It was, it's been more. Sometimes it was $50,000, but now I think it's $30,000 between the two of us. And the county takes that money, and we have a grant allocation process where people can just apply. You have to be in Saratoga County, and it's run through the county. And that's the second thing. And the third thing, which is probably the most difficult, but most heartwarming, that I kind of coordinate. So we get dozens of requests each month for sponsorship of a golf tournament, silent auction items, and that kind of thing. So I try to make those meaningful gifts. So I think most of the gifts we give is a complimentary night in the hotel and a $200 gift certificate to Morton. So somebody can take that gift and really get some decent money. Or they can, I tell them, listen, if you want to package it with other Saratoga organizations or things to do in Saratoga, whatever you can do to market it to get the most you can. So those are the three things we do. And, I just got a letter from a high school student. I won't mention her name, but she wrote a heartwarming letter that kind of like got my attention. And she asked for a donation, in memory of her dad who died when she was 4. But she wrote an unbelievable letter, and it moved me. And I'm like, I wrote her back and I said, listen, you really don't fit the criteria of what we do, but we can make this work. So I'm going to send her something for her fundraiser. So the good part is we don't have any hard and fast rules.
Well, I was just going to say, that's, I do think what makes you guys, and like you said, Adirondack Trust, another great stewards, just great community businesses that give back. But I think that is exactly what makes, I think, the work at Saratoga Casino different. Some people would have gotten that letter and been like, oh, great letter, but it doesn't fit our box. There's a real person who's reading the letters and making these decisions, and that's you and your team. And I just think it's awesome. You're making a difference. And then for that girl who's trying to do something for her dad, sometimes I think the differences we make don't seem big to us, but to other people, they're huge.
Well said. I mean, because we have, most of the organizations we support have to be 501c3s. Yeah. So this is one that extra. we can kind of finagle it.
When any of the board members talk about what we do at Jake's, it's really easy to talk about the grants for the big pieces of equipment, right? Someone who needs a wheelchair or an adaptive stroller or a gait trainer that are several $1,000s. But what always stands out to me is sometimes the families that are asking for an item that is, $98 or $114. It will make all the difference in the life of their child and therefore in them, but they just can't swing it. And that sometimes those smaller gifts have a greater impact.
That's spot on too. And one of the other things that from our company's perspective, we always try to help organizations that are not mainstream. Say they don't get funding from federal or state or county sources, so they kind of fall through the cracks. And those are the organizations that are feel-good organizations that say, hey, I like helping. The Garrity's kind of give me the ability to do that.
So the Garrity's, it's third generation, you said?
Correct,
wow.
Yes. They've been the owners of the company for 3 generations now, probably close to 80 years.
Let's talk a little bit. So this podcast, A Place of Yes, is honestly, it's about my story, after Jake passed and kind of figuring out what to do with grief, like kind of this whole idea of turning grief into something good. So to get a little personal, have you had anything in your life where you kind of have used that? And I think sometimes, people think of grief as how you are when someone passes. But in a lot of the conversations we've had on this show, it's been about sometimes you grieve the life you thought you were going to have, or you kind of, it's not always just this grief of like, so-and-so died. It's kind of a loaded question.
No, it's not. No. I would say, so my mom was diagnosed with Alzheimer's when she was, I think, 52 years old, which was extremely young. Back then, they really didn't have the tests that they have today, the cognitive test, to see if what's going on. My dad took my mom to all these appointments trying to figure out if she had a stroke, what was going on with her, because she was always the strong person, the matriarch that ran our family household. And my father came home and said, well, it looks like your mom has Alzheimer's disease. And
how old were you?
I was probably like 13 or 14, freshman maybe in high school. And I was like, what is that? And she says, well, she's losing her memory and it's affecting her in all different ways. And I said, well, how did they determine that? She said, well, they did all sorts of other tests and determined that she didn't have all these other things, so they must be Alzheimer's. I can always remember the the test that they gave my mom, they said, Mary Jane, tell us 6 words that begin with the letter P. And I said, well, how many did she come up with, Dad? He's like, none. From then on, my father was unbelievable to my mother. He took care of everything. He actually quit his job to stay home with her. He put locks all over the doors, up, down, around. He would hire home care. And then when she finally went into a nursing home, he went to visit her every day, did her laundry, had lunch with her every day.
Remarkable.
So I still get choked up, but he was just he had an unbelievable presence about him, and he never once complained that, this is not the way it's supposed to turn out. He was a remarkable guy. But one other thing I want, and it's not really about grief. It's more about a very competitive guy. I don't know if you know that, but I was talking to somebody the other day, and I just had this thought that I've been involved in thousands of games, baseball games, basketball games, golf matches. And the ones that I remember the most are the ones I lost. So I was trying to figure why that is. So maybe some psychologist can tell me why I remember the games or the matches that I lost more than the ones I won.
Brian, who is very athletic and played football in college and all of that, he would say the same thing, because I feel like I've heard him talk about that to like Ethan. And for him it's the games you lose that stand out, and they make you think about what you would do differently, and they kind of force you to think of different things that you always plan on. You hope to win, so when you win, I don't know. I've heard him have this kind of conversation.
That's pretty good. I like that. You expect to win, so that when you win, it's not a big deal. Yeah. When you expect to win and you lose,
you think about it. Yeah,
I like that. Anyway, I hope that answered your question.
No, it absolutely did. No, I think it was perfect. And honestly, it reminded me. So I think Brian's mother passed away from Alzheimer's 3 years ago or so at this point. She, not as young as your mom, but she had started showing signs, I think, earlier than anybody wanted to do anything about. Over time, it developed, and it went pretty quickly. Like, she went from being forgetful to not remembering, and there was an angry stage, and then it just was I would say the last 15 years she was alive, she didn't know Brian, certainly didn't know me. It was a long journey. Like, she lived a long life with this disease. But the one thing that I talked about all the time, and Brian will talk about, and is the relationship between Brian's dad and Brian's mom, similar to what you just told. And Brian's dad was he's a minister in Boston, an African-American in a community that, kind of had fought hard. He saw a lot of things in Boston that wasn't great. So a strong, tough guy. And he became the gentlest, most amazing caregiver that you would not necessarily have seen.
My mother had all sorts of issues. So you couldn't really hug her because she had bone issues that it hurt. So one of the last remembrance of probably maybe a week before she died, my daughter was at the nursing home, and she was probably like 1 or 1.5. And she was crawling around the bed, and she crawled over my mother's legs, and my mother shot up with the pain. So, but my father used to, like you said, he would hold her hand all the time. We would hold her hands all the time. My mother didn't suffer for as long. She probably she passed away from the time she was diagnosed. I think she passed away 12 years later.
I think that's the perfect antidote for the question, right? Because the whole turning grief into good, and it is sometimes in those dark moments, or in the moments where you're seeing stuff or having to accept stuff, that you kind of, I don't, it sounds very cliche to say you find out who you are, right? But those are the moments. It's like when you don't win. Those are the moments that mold you and to turn you into who you are. And I know for me, when Jake passed, I've said this sort of on the show before, because I feel like we've been talking, the whole point of the show a little bit is talking about what you do with grief. To me, it wasn't about trying to be this better person at all. It was 5-year-old Ethan was watching his mom, you know what I mean? That was really, it became clear to me that it sucked. I lost a son, but I didn't want to screw up a son or lose another son. So I had to show up. I had to figure it out. I do think I still continue to, in my conversations with Jake, between him and I'm grateful to him. I do wish things were different. I wish he was still here. I wish all of those things. But I'm grateful to him because I think it's through him that I have become a better person, that I have become a more confident, like helpful, like I feel good that I do good, right? And I think that's a nice feeling. So I'm thankful to Jake for that. And it sounds like a lot of what you saw with your dad and your mom has helped you become who you want to be, right? Like,
well, can I ask you a question?
You sure can.
Like, I read a lot of your posts that Colleen will send me sometimes, and people always say that time heals all wounds.
No.
Is it? No.
I would say no. I would.
I sense that.
What heals is at least for me, like my ability to function in the world and my ability to separate like the dire sadness with the rest of my life. Because I'm happily married. I have Ethan, who's awesome. I have so many great things in my life, and I get to meet so many great people, and I get to talk about my boy Jake. Like, a lot of times I think a hard thing for moms who've lost their son is they feel like no one wants to ask the questions. No one wants to talk. And really, it's just like being a parent, right? I'm still his mom. I want to talk about Jake as much as I want to talk about Ethan, because you're proud and it's your kid, right? Like, you like to talk about him. I think it's certainly different than it was in those days, those very raw days after it happened. But it's just as hard. Like, honestly, 2 days ago, I woke up in a cold sweat, like in tears, because I dreamed, this is dark, but I dreamed that we were all in the water and I was holding Jake and he drowned and the water was really dark and murky and I couldn't find him. And I laid in bed with my eyes closed, like awake for like 10 minutes because I thought it was real. I finally opened my eyes and I had to like kind of talk myself, like calm myself down that it was a dream. So it still is like debilitating as it was when it first happened. I'm just better at hiding it. I wish I could say that time does heal it, but I don't think it does. Maybe for some people it does, but for me, it's just more, sometimes I get real sad because I'm like, I haven't seen, Ethan's 19. Jake would be turning in May, he'd be turning 18. It's 14 years I'll have gone without seeing my boy. Like, it sucks. So I thank you for asking, because I do. I like to talk about that stuff even when it's dark and potentially makes people uncomfortable. But I think the best thing you can do for someone who's like in that thing is to give them the chance to talk about it.
I just can't fathom how I would ever handle anything like that. It just seems like you've handled it unbelievably well, and you've funneled into something positive. And so, do you talk to people that are in the same situation as you that have lost a child?
So, in all honesty, I feel like I am that person to people, especially because of the work we do with Jake's, Help from Heaven. Unfortunately, I just sent out another email to the board this morning that we lost someone else. This has been a rough week. We've lost 2 of the people we've worked with over time. And the nature of the population that we work with is such that the kids pass away, or even when they make it into adulthood, oftentimes they pass away. I think one of the things that does make our organization unique is that there's me and Brian, but more so me because I'm more of like the face and the contact with the families. But I'm that person to a lot of the families. Like, I'm someone that they know has been there and can talk about it. And I'm happy to have those conversations with families. I think for some people, it gives them a little bit of hope that you can survive it. For other families, they know they can talk to me. They can tell me like whatever weird shit's going on with them. And like, I'm not going to judge them.
It's very comforting that they have a resource like you that has lived through this.
So even that, to some of our families, the fact that it's not just me as the mom, but this family that kind of has gone through this big crisis and sort of has come out the other end. The flip side of that is I would love to say that I was not that resource for people and I just was a regular mom with 2 healthy boys, but that's a little bit my own grief or whatever, right? Like, so one last question about Saratoga Casino. As you know, we at Jake's definitely, we appreciate the relationship we have with you guys, and we are really grateful for it. But can you share why we have been so lucky, why Jake's Help from Heaven's been so lucky to be a recipient for as long as we have?
I think it's remarkable the amount of lives that you've touched and the amount of lives that you've made a difference. And that's kind of the title of our program, is Making a Difference. And Jake's truly makes a difference. And we also like to support organizations that support us. I know you've had events at our place, and we always appreciate that. My wife has been a member of your board for a long time, so I'm very familiar with everything you do. And I can always tell when it's time for Jake's to give out the grants, because she's sitting at the kitchen table with tears rolling down her face. What better way to support an organization that helps so many people? And you do it for people in our region, and it's an easy organization to support that makes you feel good.
So if other organizations were interested in sharing their journey and what they do with Saratoga Casino, what would be the best way to do that, and what is the criteria for being recognized by Saratoga Casino?
All right, the criteria is that you make a difference in our community. There is no application. If you think we've missed you and that you're deserving, I think the best way is you can write me a letter, send me an email. We'd be glad to consider you.
I said in the beginning of the interview, and I will end it on this note. It is a huge organization, like you said, 450 employees. But at the end of the day, Saratoga Casino it's a group of real live humans. And you are one of the ones that just makes a difference. You know, the fact that you can get an email or a letter and it's enough to kind of enter this consideration. I think it's part of the impact that you and Colleen have on this community. And Saratoga is a better place because you guys are in it.
You know something, it's not really all about me. We have 450 people that really do all the work that enables us to do these kind of things. So I really applaud. We have a great number of people. I think we have over 100 people that have worked over 25 years there. So we have lots of people that have been there.
I mean, that says a lot about the organization.
Been there a long time. It's a great place to work. And, you know, the folks that own the Garrity family, they believe in the community. And things I've learned from Charles Waite. I mean, I think Charles Waite said, and this is Charlie Waite, young Charlie, I think one of his fundraising things that we go to all the time, he said, you don't want to have a successful business in a community that is not successful. If you have a successful community, it's going to build successful businesses. So I think it's a job of businesses in that community to give back, to make sure that you have that flow. And so I learned that from him.
Well, thank you very much for being a part of this.
My pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Thank you for listening to A Place of Yes. Please follow us wherever you listen to your podcasts. Please subscribe to our YouTube channel, leave us a thumbs up, or leave us a comment. We would appreciate all that you can do. If you really like this episode, please share it with a friend or two. For more information and to leave us any feedback, please reach out to us at jakeshelpfromheaven.org.